Greetings, one, greetings, all. You have reached Wednesday Night Undress, the home of big mouths and small thoughts. And tonight we are joined by our inestimable Mr. Ivo Ivanov.
Hello.
Kay Travers with us.
Hello.
Alena Ivanov.
Hi.
And Jamie Price. How you guys all doing?
Excellent.
Everybody get their taxes in? It is tax day.
Oh, shoot.
I know, right? Like, I probably should have asked that before I started the record, but...
Yeah, I was planning on doing them, but I found it very taxing.
That's brilliant. But see, this is why I miss Lawrence, miss Evo, miss being able to see his face when he tells those jokes and watch everybody else respond to them.
It's horrible puns.
Yeah. That's okay. That's actually kind of where I wanted to start tonight. That was one of the things I wanted to ask. Anybody got any better jokes than Evo's tax joke?
No.
Very punny, you know.
Yes.
No.
All right, so I got a joke that I just found. I love this joke. It's a Reddit joke, so if you've already heard it, it's because you've been on Reddit like me. What did the dentist say when he pulled the wrong tooth?
What?
It was accidental.
Oh my God. So that is not better than being taxed by doing your taxes. Not better than that. You know, I don't have any jokes, but Jamie asked me if I want some alphabet soup for dinner, and I said no because I'm tired of her putting words in my mouth.
Oh, that's just marriage, though.
That's better.
So I actually had an ulterior motive for asking the question because we have. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so on St. Patrick's Day, I've been on the St. Patrick's Day parade committee for like nearly 30 years, since I was 19 years old. And about 20 years ago, things started getting very tense during meetings, and we'd get really like argumentative about certain things. And whether it be insurance or how we handle one thing or another. And at the end of the meeting, they'd be like, okay, does anyone else have something to say? And I'd be like, And I started telling jokes at the end of any St. Patty's Day meeting. So I started telling Irish jokes, and this is one of my favorite. And since you guys are a new audience, everybody in the St. Patty's Day Parade Committee who's been there for more than a few years has heard this over and over. So here you go. So Flynn came home after a very long evening drinking with his buddy Patty, and he took off his shoes to avoid waking up his wife after he walked in the house. And he tiptoed very quietly over to the staircase leading to the upstairs bedroom. But of course he was wasted, and he misjudged his step, and he fell, and he grabbed the handle, and he fell over on his butt. And that was sucky because he had a bottle of whiskey in each like back pocket. So they broke, and all the broken glass was very painful, right? So he very quietly, without yelling, pulled down his pants, and he looked at the hall mirror, because there's usually a hall mirror by the end of the staircase, and could see that his butt cheeks were bleeding pretty badly. So he was able to find a box of Band-Aids, and he very carefully began putting a Band-Aid on each one of his bleeding spots. And then he very quietly went up to bed. And the next morning, Flynn woke up with searing pain in both his head and, of course, his butt. And his wife, Mary, staring at him from across the room, said, "So you were drunk again last night, weren't you?" And he said, "Well, why would you say such a mean thing?" And she goes, "Well, it could be the open front door. It could be the open glass at the bottom of the broken glass at the bottom of the stairs. It could be the drops of blood trailing through the house. And it could be your bloodshot eyes. But mostly, it's all of those damn Band-Aids that are stuck on the hall mirror."
Oh my God. And you said that during the St. Patrick's Day committee meeting?
Yes, that's how we close the meeting, and everybody laughs or groans, and then we end the meeting, and nobody's mad at each other anymore. So it always worked when I tell a joke at the end of the meeting.
That's pretty good. That's a good strategy. Relieve the tension. Yeah, I've been in a couple of those meetings as a presenter. Applying for the grant, and I noticed that there's a lot of people on those committees. And when you have a lot of people trying to make a decision, it's usually very complicated.
My
And
father's best rule of thumb is that when you're trying to make a decision, never have more than 3 people in the room. And unfortunately, with the St. Patty's Day committee, that is not the case. So it becomes very heated sometimes because we're all alpha personalities. So.
yeah,
Understood.
yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. Alena, do you have a joke? You're a comedian.
Well, I have one that like by another comedian, but it's more of like an entire routine he does. But it's about his name's Alex Edelman, and
Yeah.
it's about kind of like home ownership and millennials and trying to buy things like coming up as a millennial. And the joke he's making is about basically his living situation, and he's a comedian in LA, so he starts off talking about how he's paying like $2,000 a month to live in a closet with like 8 other dudes and a dog. And he goes into like some detail about that, and then ends up talking about how annoyed he gets when older people tell him to just buy a house because it'll be easier for him to just buy a house when they've spent like, when he asks them how much money they spent on a house, and they'll be like, oh, I bought this in 1972 with 5 blueberries, which I think I liked that joke.
Gotcha. So you are the reason that I actually came up with this question. I wanted to like do a little bit of meta-analysis, which is all you get on podcasts right now anyway. But can you tell me what the difference between a joke and a bit is?
Yeah, I think a joke has a specific punchline, or maybe even if you have a story,
Gotcha.
it'll have a bunch of punchlines scattered throughout.
Right.
Whereas like a bit is more like a character, or there's nothing, what you're doing during the joke doesn't necessarily end with a punchline.
Gotcha.
It's like a way you're presenting yourself, I think.
So do you do jokes or do you do bits?
When I did it more frequently, I think I did a lot of like one-liners, which were all jokes.
Right.
And then the songs would depend what the premise of the song was, whether or not it feels like a joke to me or not. Like if it has punchlines coming up, it would be a joke. But if like I had a song about being a stalker, and that felt more like a bit because there weren't specific punchlines. It was more like, this feels like a love song, but is actually a song about stalking someone, which seems more like a bit to me.
Gotcha. So for you, what is like the corny jokes that Eva and I just told to start this thing off? Are those at all funny? Like, and I'm just curious, like as a comedian, is that is that like it's obviously hacky, but is it still funny?
I think they can be funny if the way they're framed. Like people like Mitch Hedberg and Stephen Lynch. Not Stephen Lynch. No, Stephen Wright. Mitch Hedberg and Stephen Wright.
Yeah.
Jokes like that all the time that end up being funny. But normally they have to be very original puns, I feel like things that you feel like nobody has made that observation before when you hear it.
Gotcha. Miss Jamie, do you have a joke for us?
Well, no, not really. Someone stole my mood ring the other day, and I don't really know how I feel about it. So
I have mixed feelings about feelings.
Alena, how do you drown a hipster?
How?
How do you drown a hipster?
How?
You throw him in the mainstream.
Oh.
Wow. All right. So I have no idea why this next topic came up after thinking about jokes, but for some reason I automatically started thinking about like my favorite poets. So like, I'm curious to know, like on the panel, like, do you have a favorite poet or poem and what it is and why? What or who and why?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I really don't like poetry very much right now in the age that we're in, because people, well, and I guess it's always been like that. My mom said, so my mom was a beat in the 60s, and so she used to go to those places, you know, where they all dress in black and they snap and they do that kind of thing. And just drives me freaking insane. But I would say that T.S. Eliot, because my first boyfriend was really into T.S. Eliot, and of course you're all hormonal, and so a guy's reading you poetry and you love it. I got into him, but also the only books that my mom read to me were T.S. Eliot poems about cats, which is what the musical Cats came from. And even though it's kind of a stupid musical, to make actually beautiful music out of these weird Macavity, there's no one like Macavity, strange poems was really, that's about the only poet who really truly stuck with me. But I think most songwriters are poets in their own right, so I would have to leap forward 30 years to then say there's a lot of songwriters that are wonderful poets.
Okay, so if you had to pick one, who would it be?
T.S. Eliot.
Oh, gotcha. I mean, I'm sorry. What I was meaning was, if you had to pick a songwriter, who would it be?
Yeah, I need another week to figure that one out.
Oh, okay, that's fair. Mr. Ivanov, how about you? Do you have a I know that you I am always amazed at your knowledge of poetry, but do you have a favorite poet or poem?
I don't think I do. Just poetry it's very diverse. It's hard for me because there's like lyric poetry, there's epic poetry, there's narrative poetry, like Odysseus or the Iliad is kind of a epic and narrative poetry that tells a story. And this is a storytelling poetry. But then there's lyrical poetry that can be absolutely mind-blowing. So I can't really, there's philosophical poetry. I probably like that the most. I like Khalil Gibran. You know him. He's like American Lebanese philosopher poet. His book, his really big poem called The Prophet is world famous. It's like, I think it's the most translated poetry book in the last 200 years. It's philosophy and poetry combined together. And, I really, really, really appreciate him. Then, if you think of Thus Spake Zarathustra, Friedrich Nietzsche's book, it's really poetry and philosophy as well. I love this kind of stuff. I love Steppenwolf, Hermann Hesse. I love Goethe, his poetry as well, and Schiller. I like German poetry. I love Russian poetry, but you have to know Russian.
I was going to say, do you speak Russian?
Yeah, you have to know Russian to appreciate Pushkin or Lermontov or Yesenin. These are amazing poets, maybe the best ever, but you have to really be fluent in Russian to find the rhythm and the richness of this voluptuous language that they use. And it's really rhythmic and beautiful. Russian is really meant for poetry. It's a really beautiful poetic language.
Ivo, can I ask you something on that note?
Yeah.
So I know, as being a native Spanish speaker, the way that they speak, they consider to be very poetic just in the way that, Latinos speak, and a lot of Latin languages. Is it the same then in Russian, that they sort of have to speak around something and do everything very metaphorically when they speak, so that it does sound more romantic or more in depth than what, say, white American gal?
Yeah, they're very sentimental, Russians. Extremely sentimental, extremely romantic. And this just by reading, not necessarily their poets, but people like Dostoevsky and Tolstoy, how sentimental they can be. And there's like I feel like every Russian literary figure is heartbroken somehow.
It's like a requirement.
Yeah, it's a requirement. Woody Allen has an incredible movie called Love and Death that me and Alena love. And he kind of brilliantly satirizes this part of the Russian soul, this broken part that's always there. and makes them very, very, what's the word? I mean, poetic, really, about everything. They can spend, Russian writers can spend 20 pages describing a tree, which is one of the things that makes reading Love and Peace impossible.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it makes them unique and amazing and very poetic. And then again, there's so many different variances of poetry that it's impossible to just pick one. Like, for example, and Louis and Jamie will recognize this. I don't know about Alena, but remember this: my head is twisting in its cage. My mind feels like a 20 gauge. Hope is just a passing stage. My heart's not red, it's beige. This is Bob Schneider, from, this may be his most famous song, The Big Blue Sea. But, you think about this, how about this? His palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. There's vomit on his sweater already. Mom's spaghetti. Rap music is poetry. A good, tight rap song is really poetry that comes straight from the heart. And I appreciate it very much. And it doesn't necessarily fit into the metric parameters that are academically defining poetry, like the pentameter,
I am pentameter.
the lambic pentameter. Pentameter is in Greek and Bulgarian, which is probably the correct way to say it because it's a Greek word. Or hexameter, which is also a Greek word. And they don't fit necessarily in this, so they break the norms. They break the shackles of academia. But they become poetry, and so they continue to expand the field of poetry beyond its current borders, which is beautiful. So yeah, I have many favorite poets. Of course, everybody loves Shakespeare. I love Robert Burns, and it's a never-ending topic.
Yeah. See, for me,
I have a joke about languages. It's
Okay.
real short, and you can cut it out of the final clipping. But
all right,
an
I'm making a
American-
mark now. No, go ahead.
An American, a Latino, and a Frenchman and a German are all talking about how wonderful their languages are and how beautiful they are, and they're boasting about how wonderful and beautiful their languages are. And the American is like, well, let's just take a word. For example, butterfly. Butterfly. It just rolls off your tip. It's like your tongue. It's like butter. And the Frenchman is like, oh, you've got to be kidding. No, it's papillon. Papillon. How could there not be a more beautiful word than papillon? Butterfly. You can just
Butterfly.
right. And then the Spaniard is like, oh, no, mariposa. Mariposa. It's just the most beautiful word. It just exudes romance and beauty and loveliness. And the German goes, and what is wrong with Schmetterling? That is the word for butterfly. Just telling you.
Gotcha. Yep. Nope. That's it.
Germany is not very poetic, but my goodness, to make it poetic, to make it poetic like Schiller does, or Hesse, you really have to be virtuoso to make German sound rhythmic and beautiful. It's almost impossible.
Amy, you're muted. Are you talking to us? Okay, probably not. Okay.
Not at all.
Gotcha. Okay. So for me, like I think I don't know if it's facile or simple to just say, like, for me it's always like the immediate name that comes to mind is Poe, and for me it's always almost a straight up tie between The Raven and Annabel Lee. Like, I just love those two poems essentially for like the reasons that you were hitting on earlier, Eva, when you were talking about like the rhythm and the simplicity of the structure. Those are just, quite honestly, like, he is my favorite poet, and I just recently like handed down my favorite like complete works of Edgar Allan Poe to my daughter, and so she's reading. I gave it to her with the one instruction to not read the short stories before or at bedtime, that she should probably always wait.
So So you like narrative poetry, a poetry that tells a story.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
dark and brooding,
Mm-hmm.
moody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
How about you, Alena?
I like Rumi, but I know that Rumi is like the best-selling poet, so it might be a little. I like Rumi a lot, though.
Right.
And I'm obviously not reading it in Arabic, so I probably
Mhm.
am missing a lot of what is trying to be said. I also really like E.E. Cummings, and I like Rumi and E.E. Cummings for like kind of similar reasons. And the Rumi books are all translations. The formatting could have been done by the translator, but both of the poems I've read by them are formatted in a way that the formatting is part of the poem you're reading. And I think that's interesting for the way something is formatted, for that to be part of the like experience of reading it. Like it feels like you're looking at an art piece, like a visual art piece, as well as reading a poem.
Right.
Yeah, Rumi is a famous Persian poet and philosopher. But you know what's interesting is he transcends cultures because it's thoughts based. It's philosophical poetry, so you can relate to it with even in translation you can understand it and appreciate it. It's good.
Jamie, I can see that you are post-literate, but are you also a fan of the poetry?
I love your Zoom background, Jamie.
Yeah.
It's actually my Zoom picture that I will have to change shortly when I'm done, because that would look terrible at a meeting tomorrow when it pops up. So I'll have to take that down.
Do it.
Leave it up. I'm going to read you a poem that I like that, strikes heavy in the hearts right now, and it'll be brief, I promise you. A bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends, and dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied. He opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on a distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. The free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade winds of soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on a dawn bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. But a caged bird stands on the grave of dreams, and the shadows shouts on a nightmare scream, and his wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on a distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. And I think it's kind of appropriate, given all of our sheltering in place, where we are right now. I think we're all feeling a little caged. So that was Maya Angelou, and I think she unknowingly was speaking maybe to where we sit today a little bit.
Scarily, she was speaking to her situation then, and it equally speaks to us now, and that's the sad part.
Yeah. This is well known to be the one poem that inspires Donald Trump's every action and informs his day-to-day decisions.
That would be exactly how I describe. I can see the meetings now.
Yeah.
All right. So I had a couple of questions just about the quarantine that's going on right now, and this is not part of the scheduled list of topics, but Governor Kelly just announced that school is being delayed today for the fall startup. Alena, do you know if that affects the college at all?
I haven't gotten any more emails from them. So far, what they've been telling us is that we're going in person until right before Thanksgiving break, and then remotely until the start of the next semester.
Gotcha.
But I don't know if they'll continue with that plan of action moving forward, or if they'll have us go remotely for the entirety of the semester.
Are you guys experiencing a lot of people giving pushback on just the the, the quarantine, the lockdown levels generally, just like within people that you know? Like, how do people feel? What are you hearing?
I don't know if I've heard a lot of direct pushback. I've heard people being lonely.
Right, right.
But I've not heard people saying that they think it would be better to, be able to go to a bar than not. Like I've heard people wishing they could see more people, but I've not heard people being angry.
So are most of your friends, because you're of the age group where like everybody wants to say it's your fault at this point that the disease is still passing around because your age group is still out partying all the time. Is that your experience?
It's not been my experience, but I've always had only around like 3 friends, like my whole life.
Gotcha.
So at a time.
Gotcha.
So I've been hanging out with the people I normally hang out with, and we've not really seen a ton of parties, but they do live downtown, and there are like younger people, like 18, 19-year-old kids that seem to be from the university that are going to like large parties right next door to where they live. So I do see that happening, but I don't think we're doing it. Like, not my friend group.
Was it the Wheel that was just a hot spot a couple of weeks ago?
I think
the Hawk. Okay.
Yeah, it was the Hawk. Actually took us up over 90 people in Douglas County, and it brought us up like over 100. And I've noticed, since I live in Old West Lawrence, sort of, around the stadium, a lot of people around 4th of July, they were all playing beer pong, and I saw, driving the next day, tons of beer pong tables like out on the street. And so that means there was at least 20 people probably there at any of those given things. But the Hawk, yeah, definitely was the reason the bars have closed down again. I think that's a good thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm sure it's hurting the bar owners, but it's still a scary, scary place to be. So cool. I was just curious about that. So on that note, though, what is it that everybody's finding fantastic about this new normal? Like, there's got to be some good parts. So like for me, it is, quite honestly, it has been like seeing my kids pretty consistently, and getting to learn who they are in their, now that they are old people.
Yeah.
Julian is 10 and Izzy's 13, so they're ancient now.
I mean, obviously working at home is fantastic.
Is it not a like you were just telling me before we started this that you're building lots of multimedia stuff? Does it not make a difference for you for like home versus office? You basically just load everything up.
Not really. The only thing is that, it's taking up space and contributing to the entropy, at home. But other than that, my goodness, it's great not to having to commute and, just working at home. Your office is right by you, just get a cup of coffee and start working, and the results are the same. If I need to go somewhere, I'll go. But other than that, I don't have to go every day and relocate just for the heck of relocating, for the sake of relocating.
See, I have to. If I'm at home, I get too distracted by my pets, my cats, the dogs, TV. If I go anywhere else, even if it's a restaurant and I'm sipping on a glass of wine, I am so much more productive than if I'm at home. And so for me, that part is a little bit different. But I could literally go sit with my laptop on a park bench and do better than I would do at home.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. With me, it's like I don't care, Yeah, we have a dog and a cat, and they sometimes are overwhelming.
When you say we, are you talking about you and your wives in the background there?
I know, it's like,
Yes.
who are all the ladies there?
Well, yeah. I mean, those
I
girls.
have a cat. You guys have a dog. That's my cat. But she's with everyone. now.
So the cat would come and while I'm working on the computer, would come on its hind legs and pet me gently, like with her paw, to remind me that I need to pet her. And she does that all the time, all the time. She doesn't like it when I work on the computer, and of course, you know what they do. They try to climb on your keyboard all the time. It's a cat
Sorry
thing.
about that last text to you, Lewis. Sorry. That
Say
was my-
again?
Sorry
Oh,
about
gotcha.
that last email to you. That was my cat.
Oh, no worries, no worries. So, how about you, Jamie? You're working from home too, primarily, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Is that enjoyable? Do you miss having an office?
I essentially have an office, so I've absconded with one of the rooms upstairs, and I've got a standing sitting desk and 3 screens, and so I mean, probably the only difference is kind of that touch point of being able to see folks. So the team is remote, so I'm used to managing them remotely and through Zoom, and the kind of change and work that you have to do when you manage remote staff. Other half of my staff is on the part of the state where I am. Unfortunately, I think when we go back to the office, a lot of our meetings are going to remain to be by Zoom. So I'll just be sitting in my office having a Zoom meeting instead of at home. So I get to save 2 hours of commuting, which is great because I can get a little bit more work done. It's bad because I get a little more work done. So you never work, and it's really kind of hard to stand up at the end of the day and not work. It's a little bit easier when you have to drive home. So I mean, it's pros and cons. As definitely my Zoom skills have gotten much better, right? I know lots about Zoom. In fact, today I was doing a meeting with nationwide with Medicare salespeople because they've never used Zoom, and teaching them some Zoom tips on online that they had no idea about. So yeah, it has its pros and its cons. I can't say that I'm eager to go back to the office. I could work like this and be just fine with it. So,
how about you, Alena? Like, what would you miss? What will you miss when we get out of this quarantine phase?
Yeah, well, I appreciated being able to get closer to the close friends I have because I felt like when there was more of a chance to socialize with strangers constantly, I would make like a large group of like acquaintances and not get to be close to people that are like actually around and able to be around during like a situation like this.
Yeah.
And then I also appreciate having my philosophy lectures pre-recorded actually, because in class it can get really confusing when someone asks a question, because philosophy professors, I feel like they get so wrapped up in like answering every part of like a student's question that we end up having like a different lecture, and the lecture becomes about the question that was asked and then the next question that was asked, and it's no longer like related to what we had read or what the course was about, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So I like being in class, but I don't like getting confused about what I should be focusing on because of the way the lecture travels.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense.
100%. Just curious, do you listen to any lectures at double speed?
I listen to all of my lectures at double speed, yeah.
I didn't know.
Same here. I'm still studying for the bar right now, and if I had to listen to them at full speed, I think I would drive myself crazy.
Yeah.
So it's got to be double speed.
Well, on the same thing of what you were saying about getting to know your friends a little bit better, I'm a person who's really bad with names. Like, so bad with names. You know, you get introduced one time, and unless you say their name 3 or 4 times over and over, you don't know their names. So now doing this Zoom thing, I know who Lewis is. I know who Nico is. I know who Alena is. And same thing with, I do a sandbar, like it's a bunch of people from the sandbar. And we get on Zoom calls, or actually one of the other ones, not Zoom, but I'm like, oh man, I see them in the bar all the time, or used to. And I had no idea what their name is because we don't wear name tags. But doing this, you can wear a name tag, and then I feel like I'm kind of getting closer and getting to know these people a little better. So I like that aspect of this.
Cool. Okay, so I am going to deviate from the script again because I have political questions I want to ask folks.
Wow.
How are you guys feeling? Do you think that we are going to be looking at? Uh, 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 do you think the polls are accurate? I just saw today that like the NBC poll has Biden like 11 points in front of Trump. Um, does that make you worried? Does that make you happy? Like, how are you feeling?
Clinton was way above. She was at 13 or 15% above Trump the
Mhm.
first time. It scares me to effing death. I mean, it just scares the hell out of me.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not very optimistic at all, based on the numbers alone,
Hmm.
because we are what 4 months away.
Hmm.
4 months away. This is an eternity,
Yeah.
and so I don't necessarily feel very optimistic. I know what's going to happen pretty much in the next 4 months,
Hmm.
because we will have the negative campaigning will start. We'll have billions of dollars poured into TV advertisement and online advertisement. We know at this point that there's going to be a campaign coming from foreign countries,
Hmm.
because obviously the administration not only have rejected the reality of foreign countries interfering in the elections, they have embraced it.
Hmm.
So we know that that's going to happen. And do not forget the October surprise,
Hmm.
which is going to be by power of magnitude bigger than anything we've had before. There's been opposition research. We know that Trump has sent people to Ukraine to collect dirt on John Biden's son. There's going to be tons of stuff coming out. And those polls will start fluctuating and will be much, much closer when the time is right. And also, I think that this administration is going to cheat. It will do anything in its power to regain regain its position and another mandate.
Hmm.
Everything, and that includes disenfranchising of people, closing voting stations to make it tougher for them to vote in key places, regions.
Hmm.
And I'm not excluding even manipulation by foreign countries of the machines. I'm really, really worried about all of these things, and I believe that we're going to see much, much closer numbers. And we shouldn't be optimistic. We should be vigilant, and we should animate people and, you know, reiterate how important it is to go and vote.
Hmm.
I mean, what else do we do about it? I mean, what
That's all.
do you guys think would be good steps to really make sure that people are being aware of all those things that I truly think everything that you just said is exactly what could happen? I mean,
Yeah,
Oh,
this is all we can do is just talk, tell everyone to vote, and do whatever little we can, do our little part. But I feel like another mandate, another 4 years,
mhm.
and this wonderful 250-year experiment in democracy might be completely over in this
It's a
country.
scary, scary time. That is for sure. Um, and it's very funny to me, or not very funny. It is interesting to me that like one of the things that I noticed probably about the time that I was 30
Yeah,
um, is that it seemed like every time there was an election, everybody talked about like the end of democracy if the other side wins. I genuinely feel like those were hollow words, and the country is facing an existential threat right now. So,
yeah. Stephen Bannon, when one day or 2 days after the election, Stephen Bannon was interviewed, and he said something very telling. He said, "Now we can start deconstructing the administrative state."
mhm.
And everybody kind of gasped and then dismissed it and said, "Oh, this is just some bullshit." No, that's exactly what this administration started doing immediately. And for 3.5 years, they've deconstructed every structure that has been built for the last 50 years. Governmental structure, oversight, regulation, all of this one by one has been removed. And we are now at a point where we have 4 more years of this and we'll live in a complete oligarchy and no rule of law. And I can only imagine all the horrible things that are going to happen to this democracy if we have 4 more years of this shit.
I agree.
Peru. I'm going to Peru. I'll take care of my father. He's almost 90, and I'll just move down there and stay there and hide. Yeah.
Where does your father live?
He's in Lima, Peru.
And what's the address?
I live in La Molina, and you're all welcome. We just bought the piece of property right next to us, so we're gonna have, once they're actually kind of under martial law in a way. Nobody's allowed to work. You're only allowed to have one person per household leave the house to get groceries or do anything like that. So, but we did just buy this piece of property right next to us, and so we will soon, hopefully, have a whole bunch of guest rooms. So we'll have like a little compound, and my friends can come down and we'll just huddle in Peru and eat lots of good fruit and mangoes and stuff like that and get through this together.
So is your dad Peruvian?
Actually, he's German. He was born and raised in Germany, came to KU on a Fulbright scholarship when he was 17 years old. Went back to Germany, came back at 19, graduated from KU, met my mom. They moved to New York, and in 1962, he moved to Peru to start a plastics company. That's the fast version, and he's been down there ever since. So,
wow.
Yeah, so he speaks German, English, and Spanish every day equally. His English has a German accent, his Spanish has an English accent, and all it's just all messed up. But yeah, he's doing well. He's healthy, so that's all we care about.
So, what brought you to Lawrence?
Well, me in particular, it's a longer story, but mom and dad met at KU. Both my older sisters went to KU, but my mom was sick with MS. By the time I was looking for college, I wanted to go to California, but mom was bedridden by the time I was graduated high school. So this is where she was coming for care, and so I was the 35-year-old who lived in her basement to take care of my mother. So.
Oh, that's what Alena's going to do for me. That's so sweet of you. Every family has to have one, right?
I appreciate the lack of comment by Alena. That was brilliant.
Yeah, she did really
You're
well.
almost like running out of this.
Well, I hate to be the Debbie Downer, but y'all better put your seatbelts on and figure out what country you're moving to, because there's going to be 4 more years.
Yeah, no, I get a little, like, there are some meta signs that I am intrigued by. Like there were a couple of the Supreme Court decisions that seem to undermine his power base. And I say seem because it's only like a facial or a surface depth analysis. They seem to be going against him, and you're seeming to hear a few more Republicans speak out against him. We just saw today or yesterday that Sessions lost his Senate seat, and I think that actually speaks more to Trump than it does to Sessions. So I, to be honest, I'm a little bit more hopeful now than I've been for the last 3.5 years, where I've just assumed that we were looking at 4 more years. But I'm still not. I haven't moved out of that camp. I just got a little bit more hope.
I do think the party will lose the Senate. I do think that. There will be a run on this that will be successful. But I think the foreign interest, his business interest, run too deep at this point to let this. And buckle in. And fortunately, we've got the House and the Senate that can stop a few things. I have no thought that the Supreme Court's going to stop a lot of things. I mean, it's been interesting and encouraging, but. But I think we're in for the long haul. If it's only 4 years, right?
Jamie, that this has been my mantra for like literally the last 3.5 years. Like, we are not only going to see 4 more years, we're going to see at least 4 more years. And
at least.
Yeah. But quite honestly, I'm probably more hopeful right now because of the response people have had to the pandemic, to Black Lives Matter, seeing the Supreme Court actions. Like, I gotta say, I got more hope now than I even thought I could possibly have at this point. So,
Well, I
Yeah.
had hope for McDonald's and Diet Coke and French fries and COVID. So, I mean, I hope your hope is, stronger than my hope.
I don't think if he wins, he'll have legitimately won. Like, I have hope in the populace.
yeah.
I don't think that if he wins, it will be because the populace wanted him to win.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm thinking
No, they
about what's
don't.
been happening with the primaries, and they do say it's like somehow COVID related, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it was in Louisville. I don't know if you guys saw the video of they had like opened like one polling station in all of Louisville, I think. I think it was Louisville. So people were on the interstate like all day driving to this polling station, like 6 hours, 8 hours just driving there.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they showed up, the polling station had closed. And so people were banging on the walls of the polling station trying to get it open so that they could vote. And to me, that felt like they're like a trial run for what it's going to be like trying to vote for.
Oh, there's so much meandering.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
he's trying to
Gerrymandering.
undermine the USPS like ahead of time and mail-in voting in general, defunding the mail service. It's just like concerning. But I do believe that the populace, that the majority of people in this country, well, I know the majority of people in this country didn't want him to be president because he wasn't voted president and the vote the first time around. And I think now he has even less support, way less support. But so hopefully he doesn't win. If he does win, I don't think he will have won legitimately.
Yeah. All right, cool. I have one last topic, and that is my assertion that vinyl is not superior to digital. I want somebody to convince me that I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, this basically an argument between analog and digital, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So the sound wave is by definition analog.
Mm-hmm.
Thus, the digital version is an approximation of the analog sound.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as rich as the vinyl sound because vinyl is analog.
Mm-hmm.
I think it involves manipulation, like several steps that basically approximate the sound that is analog. Now, on your side of the argument
Mm-hmm.
is the fact that a vinyl will suffer damage almost immediately, cracks, which will cause scratches, that will cause obviously noise, and obviously, especially when there's a pause in a song, this noise will be overwhelming. So, and digital is forever. Yeah, it doesn't scratch, it doesn't get damaged. So I guess there's two sides to this argument, but if in a perfect world, if you have undamaged vinyl, completely pure vinyl, and pure digital sound, the vinyl will have a richer, better, fuller sound. I think.
So
I think digital sound on Zoom calls, however, does degrade quite a bit. Just like,
yeah,
it's not immortal, like you said, or whatever.
yeah.
Zoom calls, no, not good.
Eternal. Yeah.
I disagree. I think that the richness is essentially like a feedback loop where the needle is picking up the ambient noise in the room, because I'm pretty sure you can get that ambient sound by just turning on your machine.
If there is a very quick transitions, if there's a very quick drum bridge, the digital is not going to pick it up the way an analog device would pick it up. Analog source would pick it up. So, I mean, it's like, this is like documented stuff. I'm not making it up.
I like to prefer that to think that you are, but go ahead.
But so it's because, I mean, I've read about it because I've been tempted to stick to turntables and vinyl, but it's just impractical at this point. You know, we live in an era of immediacy, MP3 files available instantly, and I'm not that big of a connoisseur. You know, my hearing has deteriorated, you know, with age, so I don't really care that much. I care more about the quality of the content, about the composition. But there are people that are obsessed with sound. We have a friend with Jamie, an acquaintance way back, who's so obsessed with analog sound. He had, you know, just insane equipment, um, kind of anachronistic equipment that you can't find anywhere else. That just so, and he spent crazy money for it, just so he can have that analog experience. But we care about the song itself.
Oh, this brings up a whole bunch of other questions. So like, um, Jamie, are you still paper based for your job?
Nope, completely online.
You're completely online. Alena, do you use paper for school?
Not anymore. We would for tests, but only tests.
Uh-huh.
Like everything else, like essays are all online.
Gotcha. Kay, I actually don't know what you do. Do you use paper in your daily life?
Actually, I do. As secretary of the St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee, I, of course, record everything, or do everything on the computer. But I like having a paper copy of everything, just in case anything screws up. And then I can also very quickly refer back to the date when somebody's like, "Well, we never talked about that," and I can flip over to it and be like, and I highlight whenever we made a motion or something like that, and it makes an easy reference when we're doing something with a bunch of people who are alpha drinking, trying to make decisions. So
And of a different generation too. Yeah, so the reason I am interested is because like I think we've kind of moved into, based on just jumping off of what Evo said, we've kind of moved into a reality where like we don't have a whole lot of physical stuff. Like we're moving away from just the permanency of physical things and opting for the convenience of the virtual.
And that's a good thing, although we all have some kind of affinity towards certain physical items like books. I like the weight of a book, the turning the pages. I mean, I have a wonderful iPad, and it's beautiful being able to download any book in the world. But there's something about holding a book. Also, photos. There's something about having a photo. Even if it's a little torn up and a little, losing its color, but there's something nostalgic and some kind of connection you have with the moment when it's actually in your hands. At least for me, not for everybody. But there's certain things. And Alena, did you mention that you're one of the few people who still holds on to turntables and records, and you love listening to them?
Well, I have a record player. It's like a $30 record player. But yeah, I like records, but I don't have objective reasons why I like the sound better. I like kind of more the things that you said were negative aspects of a record, that they like crack and that they like make they like skip sometimes. They're like especially older ones that you find at like thrift stores or like Love Garden. You can find some that are like 50, 60 years old, and I think I kind of like the impurity of a record more. That's why I like listening.
We found some great records at our neighbor's house when they were on vacation. It was just fantastic stuff.
So I gotta say, like, so I don't know that I ever actually owned a record player until like last year. My kids bought me one for my birthday. And I have gotten to the point where if I have to pay like full price for a record, I'm like angry. The one thing that I really, really do like is searching for like the used record that I want. Like that does bring me joy. I will say that. So, but outside of that, like for me, it's not a issue of this. It sounds better through the.
I like the yard sale aspect of like going
I
and
do like the hunt and the negotiation, all of that stuff. I love it, love it.
Yeah, Lena likes and you know what? I have to admit, I like the crackling sound as well every once, I mean, but there's probably a level of nostalgia with me, whereas with Alena, I have no idea where it comes from,
That's just I'm a hipster. That's just
We don't probably in the mainstream.
It's just like
Mhm.
part of you're not in the club. It's not a real club, and you're not supposed to claim it. Like as soon as you claim it, you're not in the club, so I'm no longer in the club.
Mhm.
But when I was in the club, I had to like them, and then I ended up accidentally actually liking them. So
Alena, do you have
that's
chickens?
what.
Alena, do you have chickens?
What?
Do you have chickens?
No,
Okay, that's
No,
usually
not
the
yet.
no,
first description of
That's the
it.
giveaway.
she
Yep.
has chicken. She has chickens for about 5 minutes because she also has a cat.
But like truly, Alena is an old soul. Like literally, you introduced me to Fry and Laurie. So
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, that's you are all about the analog age. So it makes sense to me.
yeah.
All right, guys, I appreciate your time. We have gone over our hour schedule, which I think is great, and I think we solved all of the major problems of the world, except we still got to get Kay's address so that we can all get to her house at some point. Um, but outside of that, thank you guys very, very much, and hopefully I will see you all next week. This is Lewis Walton signing off for Evo, Kay, Alena, and Jamie.
See you next week.
Bye.